server of Technova, you will be redirected to this channel. Okay, so what you have to do, you have to go to select your club channel, and you have to select the role of GitHub club. Then you will be redirected to the this voice channel. So every day we'll be connecting here from 6 to 6:30. During that period, you can ask your doubts regarding any doubts, maybe from your subject or research paper or projects. We're there to help you all. Okay, so yesterday, 10 students have connected. We have solved their issues. So you also can connect there. Okay, so Siddharth, you can start now.
Okay, so let's start with the class today. Just a second, guys. All right. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So today we are going to be covering topics and we will start with functions. Okay. So before we see what functions are in Python or rather in any programming language, first you have to understand the semantic behind the name function. Okay. So for example, let's say you have a pen. Okay, like the normal pen. The function of that pen is to write. Like, am I right? That you use the pen to write something. That's why the function of the pen is to write. Similarly, let's say you have a bottle. So the function of the bottle is to carry some liquid like water or anything else you would like to carry. Similarly, so try to understand the semantic here. Okay, there is an object. The object has a function, and then you use that object to perform that function, and there is a certain output. So this is how the word function works in the normal English language. And similarly, this is also how it works in programming. So let's take a look at what a function is. Okay, so a function is a way through which you can use a certain block of code. Like just let's take the previous example of a water bottle. You can fill that bottle over and over again, right? Like it's not like you just fill it once and the bottle is done forever, right? You can fill it over and over. You can use it over and over. Similarly, a function in a programming language also you can use multiple times. Okay. So this is the structure of your function. Okay. In Python, we start the name of the function with the argument def. Okay, def. This is how we declare a function. Then we write the name of the function. You can write this whatever you want. And then inside the brackets, you have to write the arguments. The arguments, let's see what the arguments are. An argument is some data which is coming from outside the function, but it is computed inside the function. Okay. If you're confused, don't worry. We will take a look at all the different kinds of function with and without arguments. So don't worry about it. And yeah, so there are, and then there are the colon here in the end. And since there is a colon, we know that the every sentence which comes after it has to be 4 spaces ahead of the previous statement, right? This is called an indentation. All right. So a function can have a return value or it can also not have a return value. That depends on what type of function you are trying to build. Let's say in your function you only want to print something. In that case, you don't need to have a return value. But in case you want to do you want to calculate something and you want to do something else with the output. In that case, you do need to have a return value. Okay, so let's creating a function. Okay, let's see. Let me just open up my PyCharm. Okay, and this is from the last class. I will just select it all and erase it. Okay. So here I have a function for printing hello world. Okay. So I will write def. This is how you declare a function. And then I will name the function something. Okay. Let's say I name the function hello. And then I will write brackets. Okay. Brackets are important. If you have any arguments, you can send them inside the brackets. If you don't have any arguments, you can just leave the brackets empty. But you do need to have the brackets. Okay. Yeah, so you have def, hello, then a colon. After the colon, as you can see, there is we have 4 spaces here. This is important. This is important whenever you have a colon. It can be in a loop, in a conditional statement, in a function, anywhere. All right. So here, what we are going to do, we are going to print hello world. Okay, just give me another second, guys. Okay. So if I run this, what do you think will happen? Will I get this hello world printed, or do I need to add something else here?
You have to call the function.
Yep, I have to call the
Function call.
function, and how do I call the function?
Def hello.
By writing hello.
Yep. See, if we write def again, that will mean that we are declaring a new function, right? Instead of declaring, we just have to call the function. We will write hello, and then inside the brackets we will leave nothing. Yeah, I think I have a cold today. Okay. So, so we call the function. Yes.
Why you have to call the function after you have the print statement, the display statement.
What do you mean? Like you can have a print statement inside the function.
You can have a print statement inside the function.
Okay, there's a lot of wind from your side. I can't understand you.
Hello,
Yes.
am I audible now?
Yep, it's better now.
Okay. What I'm saying is, we already have a statement, a print function in this code. What is the essence of adding another called hello world? Hello.
Okay, so you're saying that why we are adding extra statement when we can do this by just using this statement alone,
Yeah,
right?
yes, sir.
So this is just an example to see how functions work. Okay, like functions are very important when you get into object-oriented programming. So this is just an example. This is just the like when you started programming, the first statement to execute is the print function, right? That's just an example to see the simplest way to execute a program. Similarly, this is the simplest example to execute a program which contains a function. Okay. Okay. So in case you didn't understand, let's go through it again. Def, we use def to declare a function. Then we have the name of the function. Then inside the brackets, we have the argument of the function. And in this case, there are no arguments. And then we have colon. And then inside the function, we have whatever statement we want to execute. And then we are calling the function. When I call this function, with this, that means that this part is going to get executed. All right.
So without calling the function, you won't be able to execute the.
No. So if I don't call the function and then I run this, you can say there is no output.
Okay.
Like this statement doesn't get executed if I don't call it.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right. So now we have, now let's take a look at arguments. Okay. As I said that inside the brackets, you may or may not pass an argument, but let's see if we do it.
Sir, please can you explain the calling again? My internet is not clear.
Which part?
You say if you don't call You will not get it. Will not
Okay.
get printed. Can you explain again, please?
Okay. So if you don't call a function, okay, let's say when I write hello here, see, when I write this statement, this sentence, hello, this is when, see on line 4, okay? On line 4, I have the sentence hello. This is when the Python knows that it has to go and look for a function named hello, and then it will execute whatever is inside of that function. And if I don't write this, the output is blank. There is no output because Python does know that there is a function here, but Python doesn't know what it has to do with that function. Which is why whenever you have a function, if you want to execute it, you have to call it. And when I call it, then I run it, and we do get the output here, which is this execution of that statement inside of that function. All right. So now we will take a look at arguments. Okay, let's just take the example which is in the presentation. Okay, let's take another function def, and let's also name this hello. Okay, we will take the same name as before, and here we are going to pass an argument name. Okay. So an argument, what an argument is? An argument is a data or a data point, whatever you would like to call it, which is coming from outside the function, but it gets computed inside. The computation happens inside of that function. Okay. So here we have a variable called name, and we can do anything with it inside of that function. Okay. So what we are going to do, we are just going to print hello and then comma name. Okay. Let's add a space here so we get a better output. And now I'm going to call this function. Okay. So when I run this, what do you think will happen? Like, what do you think will be the output?
Error. Name is not defined.
Yep, you are right. Let's run this. And as you can see, it gave us an error. It says we have one missing positional argument called name. Okay. So this function here, this function hello, is asking me for an argument. It's telling me to enter an argument, but I have not given it any argument. So what I'm going to do is, let's say I will just take a variable here. Let's say I will take a variable x, and inside the variable x, I will store the value world. Okay. And then I will call hello x. What's happening here is I'm calling the function with the value of x, which means when this function gets executed on line 6, the value of x will be equal to the value we are sending to the variable name. Okay. And the name is getting executed in the print statement, which means we will get hello, the output of hello world, which is hello, comma name, and name is equal to x, and x is equal to world. Let's run this. As you can see, we did get the same output, which is hello world. Okay, got it? Any doubt until here? Any questions?
Please, can you take that one more time?
Yeah, please repeat that.
Okay. So here we have a variable x, and the value of that variable is world. It's a string called world. Then we are calling the function, right? In line 10, we are calling the function, and the argument of that function is x. And now let's, when we call the function, Python knows that it has to look for the function and see what the function actually does. So Python goes back to line 6, and let's see what the function does. Okay, the function's name is hello, so that is correct. That's the function we are calling, and the function requires an argument, and inside the name and the argument is called name. Okay, like inside the brackets, I have taken it as name, so that is the argument here. What we're doing is, inside of that function, what we're doing is we are printing hello, and then we are printing name. So as I said, an argument is a data which is coming from outside of that function, right? So when we are calling this function, we are sending the data of the variable name from outside of the function, which is x. So in this print statement, what's happening in this print statement? We are printing hello, and we are printing name, right? Hello and name. And what is name? First, we have to find out what name is. So we have to take a look at where we have called the function. We have called the function in line 10, which is hello x. So x is equal to name. And what is x equal to? X is equal to world, which means name is x and x is world, which means name is also world. So when we are printing name, our output will be world. Got it? Okay, like I can just run this again and the output will be same, hello world. It's hello, and then this is getting printed, which is world, because that's the argument we have passed here. All right, so so let's take another example. Okay, I will just comment this all out. Let's take another example. We are going to declare a function called sum. Okay, and here instead of taking one argument, we are going to be taking two arguments. Okay, let's take a comma b. Okay, this is the very simple variable, and what we are going to be doing is we are going to be printing a plus b. So understand what's happening here. We have a function called sum. The sum is taking two arguments, a and b, and then it is adding both of those arguments. It's doing a plus b, and then it is giving us the output. It is printing the value of the summation of a and b. And what a and b actually are, like we don't know what the actual value of a and b, but we can, that's why we have to input the value of a and b from outside of that function. Okay, so here we will call the function sum brackets, and inside the function we can write any two numbers. Okay, let's just write 5 comma 8. So 5 plus 8 is 13, so our output should be 13. Let's take a look if that happens. And yep, the output is 13, because the 5 and 8 is our argument, and the argument goes inside of that function, and we get a plus b as our a and a plus b get printed, because that's the execution statement in the function. Okay, so this is how you can pass multiple arguments inside the same function. All right. So we saw how we passed a single argument. We saw how we passed two arguments. But you can pass multiple number of arguments. But there are this is the one dimension of diversity. But there is also another thing which is called types of arguments. Okay, as you can see on your screen, there are 5 different types of arguments: positional, keyword, default, variable length, positional argument, and keyword, and keyword arguments. Okay, variable length, keyword arguments. So these are the 5 types of arguments, and we will take a look at what all 5 of these are. For that, we are going to be going to our document resource. Let me just jump to it. Parvez, I believe you have already sent this to them.
I shared it in the group.
Okay. So what I want you all to do is go open the WhatsApp group, download the document, open it, and I will just tell you the page number. So like you can also see on the screen if you want, but if you prefer opening the document by yourself, you can also do that. Okay, so we are going to be starting at page number 3. Okay, from positional argument. Okay, I will give you a minute to get it ready, to download it and open it. All right, so okay, so on page number 3, first we have the positional argument. I will just zoom in a little more in case you are watching the screen. So the all the functions which we have declared up to now are using positional argument. So what positional argument is? Let me go back to my ID and uncomment this. All right. So positional argument is that the argument will stay consistent with its position, and by position I mean which argument comes first and which arguments come next and which argument comes last, and the order of it all. So if I have this argument A here, okay, which is coming before B. Okay, so first is A and second is B. Therefore, when I'm calling the function, the number I'm entering first is 5 and the number I'm entering second is 8, which means in this case A is equal to 5 and B is equal to 8. It can't be the other way around. A cannot be 8 and B cannot be 5. So this is what we call positional argument. Like each argument stays consistent with the position it has been entered. Okay. And then we have keyword argument. Okay. So what keyword argument does is that instead of just okay, let's go back to writing. Right. What we are doing here is we are doing summation of A and B. And when we are calling the function, we are just entering 5, 8. We are not telling Python which is A and which is B. Python is just automatically interpreting it. Python just think, okay, A is coming first and 5 is also coming first, which means that A is equal to 5. And that's how Python interprets it. But that's not the only way to do it. Now we will see how we can do it using keywords. Okay, I will just comment all of this out. And let's just take the example from here. Okay. So I have my function, let's say def. I will just name this function, let's say job. Okay. And here I am going to pass 2 arguments, which are name and again, let me change the name of the function from job to let's say occupation. Okay, I'm just going to write occup here. So that stands for occupation, and the arguments I'm going to pass is name and job. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to print name. Okay, the name which we are going to pass here. Name, comma is a comma job. Okay. These are the 2 functions which we are going to print. So let's say the value of my name is Sid and the value of the job is developer. Then what will get printed? Sid is a developer, right? So first let's do it the simplest way, which we already know. We will write occup, and we will write 2 arguments. Let's say Sid and developer. Let's run this. And as you can see, this is the output we get. Sid is a developer. But what if I want to change the order, right? Okay, I want to write developer first, and then I want to write Sid. In this case, the order of the output will also change. Okay, I will print this, and as you can see, the output is developer is a Sid. But this is not how you want to do it. So in this case, what we will do is, instead of just letting Python interpret what we mean, instead of just letting Python understanding automatically that which is the name and which is the job, I will tell Python what is what. Okay. What I'm going to do is I will write job is equal to developer. I'm telling Python that the job is developer and the name is equal to Sid. Okay. When I run this, the output is Sid is a developer. Okay, even though the order is shifted, right? Sid is coming after and developer is coming first. But because I told Python what is what using the name of the variables, I get the output, which is Sid is a developer, which is the correct output. Okay, did everybody understand this? Any questions?
No, sir.
All right.
Can you please explain this one again?
Okay. So I will just go over it again. So here we have a function called occupation, and the function has 2 arguments, name and job. And we are going to be printing name, comma is a job, right? And my arguments I'm giving, let's say Sid and developer. So what's happening here is if I just call it normally, if I just call occupation, comma Sid, comma developer inside the brackets, I will get Sid as a developer as the output. But if I shift the order, if I write developer and then Sid, the order will get shifted and the output will be developer is a Sid, which is not the correct output. It is not the output that we want. In that case, what we're doing is, instead of letting Python interpret what we mean by what, right? So for example, in this function, right, which I've selected, for A is equal to 5 and B is equal to 8. We didn't tell Python which variable is which. Maybe we wanted A to be 8 and B to be 5, but Python automatically understood which is which based on the sequence, based on the ordering, based on the position, like whatever you would like to call it. But if we don't want Python to do that, if we want to tell Python that which value belongs to which argument, in that case we can use this, right? You can see job is equal to, and here we have name is equal to. And when you use these type of statements, you can pass anything. Like you can pass the arguments in any order. Even if you have 10 arguments, you can just jumble all of them. But as long as you are telling Python which variable is equal to which value, it will be able to identify it correctly. Okay.
Okay, got it.
So is that you're assigning a keyword to the value?
Yep. You can call this a keyword. Yep. Okay. So now we get to the default argument. Okay. Let's just take this function again, and we will expand it a little. Okay. We will write it city. And for this, what we're going to do is Sid is a developer. We will write N, and then we will write city. Okay. So what will happen when I run this? What do you think will be the output?
Error.
Error. Yep, you're right. That's because this city, this argument of city, we haven't given it any value. Right, we have just given the value of name and of job, but we haven't given any value to city. So what happens? Let's say let's just take the example which we take multiple times. Let's say you are working. Let's say you have a website. You are running a website. You have lots of customers, and you're asking your customers to enter their city. But what happens if they don't enter their city? In that case, maybe you would want to enter a default city using their IP address or maybe their geolocation or anything like that. In that case, what we're going to do is we are going to be using a default value. Okay. So a default value is what we're going to do. City is equal to, and we are going to enter here Delhi. Now let's run this. So this is the statement we get. Sid is a developer in Delhi. So what's happening here is, if I do not enter an argument called city, right? On line number 20, as you can see, I am calling my function, but inside the function, I'm not passing the argument of city. So what the default argument is that if and only if I do not pass the argument when I'm calling the function, only then it will take the default argument. And the default argument here is Delhi. That's why this gets printed. All right. Like if I want to change it, if I will just write city is equal to, let's say I will write Noida, and then I try to run it. As you can see, our output is different. Sid is a developer in Noida. So this is very useful when you're making big functions, right? So when let's say if one of you works in TensorFlow, like TensorFlow is a huge library, and many of its functions have like 20 to 25, even like around 20 to 25 arguments. If you are a very highly skilled machine learning developer, then maybe you will need to use all 20 to 25 of those arguments. But let's say you are just a beginner, you don't know what these arguments mean, and you just want them to be used as the default value. In that case, this is very useful, right? In that case, it is extremely useful to have a default value declared within that function. Okay. So any doubts, any questions for this function, for this kind of function?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why is it that they didn't take the default value of Delhi, but now it's in the printout statement, in the display statement, it has Noida?
Right. So no, as you can see, Noida is not in the print statement, right? This is the print statement.
Okay, yeah. Noida is in the calling.
Yep. So city is okay. Let me just remove this for a second. Okay. So city is my argument. Okay. I want the user. I want the person who is calling the function to enter their city. Okay, that's what I want. but I also want them to give the freedom to not enter the city. Okay, if I want the user to not enter the city, that's fine by me. Okay, I mean that's fine by me. I don't mind that if they don't want to enter the city. But the problem is, if I have the city argument in the function, it does need to have some value. If it doesn't have any value, then it will throw me an error, right? We saw 5 minutes ago that if you call a function without giving the proper argument, it just gives us an error. That's why we're using the default value. So what default value does is that in case your user doesn't enter any value, then it will just take the default value which is already inside the function. Got it?
So, okay, let us remove Delhi and run this code and see.
Okay, so if we remove this and then we run this, the output is same because here I am giving the value of city. So this works perfectly fine. But if I don't enter this value, okay, let me just remove this. And now if I run this, there is an error. But if I give it a default value, I can give it a default value of anything. Let's say I just write some gibberish and then I run this, then it just takes the default value, right?
Okay.
It's not giving us an error, even though we didn't give the value of city.
So that means if you have it up, you don't have to put in the colon, right?
What do you mean? I don't have to put this here?
No, what I mean is if you have the default value of city,
Yes.
that means in the calling statement, you don't have to include it. It will stay run.
Okay, you're saying that if there is a default value here,
City.
I can instead of printing city, I can just
No, it remains there. Now in the calling statement, the calling
Yep.
argument on the last
okay,
one,
the statement or the print statement.
the last line.
Okay,
The
this
last-
statement. Okay,
Yes.
the calling function. Okay.
In the calling function, that means you don't have to include city, right?
Yep,
It's not
exactly.
compulsory.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, you got it.
Okay, sir. No problem.
Okay. Okay, now we will. Okay, so these were the main three types. Okay, positional, keywords, and default argument. These are the main three types. And then we have variable length and variable length and keyword variable length. These two are special kind of variable argument types. Okay. Now let's take a look. What we're going to write is. Let me just comment all of this out. Yeah. Okay. Before I move forward, I would like to say something, which is that from this class onward. Okay. So right up before this class, okay, like from last Sunday, like from the class 1 to the class which we had last Sunday, we have covered almost every basic thing, right? We have covered all the data types, the conditional statement, the loops and everything. So if you have done all of that, your basics of Python have been covered. That you know how you can tell yourself that you know how to code in Python. From this class onward, we are going to be, we have already stepped in what we call object-oriented programming, like using functions, using classes, using functions, using classes, using concepts such as abstraction, polymorphism, all of that is called object-oriented programming. And this portion is a little advanced, right? So before what we were studying, that was just the beginner portion. Now we're stepping into a little bit of the intermediate section, okay? We have, don't worry about it, like we have just started it, so there's nothing much to worry about. We will just take it slowly. But if you don't understand it in the first try, like you don't need to worry at all, okay? Like it's very unlikely that you take an intermediate level concept and you study it once and it just comes in your brain exactly as you want it. That's very unlikely to happen. If you don't understand it, don't worry, just pay attention, read about it, practice on it, like, and then maybe sleep a night, and then the next day practice again. Like, to understand functions properly, it will take you multiple days to understand it. You cannot understand it in one day because the structure of functions has to get embedded in your brain, so that will take a few days. And such is the case for every other object-oriented concept, right? So we are stepping. So you don't need to worry, you don't need to stress at all. just keep in your mind that since you're doing intermediate level of concepts, you need to practice a little more than what you were doing before today. All right. So now we will go back to our topics. So variable length arguments. All right. So what we were doing yet was that inside the arguments we were doing, we were calling, let's say if inside we had one argument. Let's just say we have a function which only has one argument, which means that that is one variable, and of that variable, inside the variable, I can only pass one value. Let's say my variable is a number or it is a string, then in that case, I can only pass that one string. But what if I want to input multiple numbers or multiple strings, or if I want to enter an entire list or an entire tuple, and that has to be a variable in size? Okay, what I want to enter is different number of numbers. Let's say maybe I want to enter 3 numbers, maybe I want to enter 7 numbers, maybe I want to enter 20 numbers. I want to leave it up to the user. I want to give the user the freedom, the one who is calling the function. I want to give them the freedom to enter how many ever numbers they like. In that case, we use this star argument, C star args. Okay, so let's take a look. So we are going to be writing a function again, def. This is how you declare a function. And let's say we are going to be, let's just take the name as var. Okay, var. And inside the bracket, we are going to be writing star, and then args, and then colon. And inside the colon, let's just print. Okay, let's just print. Okay, let's just print args. All right, I was just checking the syntax. And now we are going to be calling the function. This is var, and I will just have 1, 2, 3, and then I have to run this. As you can see, my output is 1, 2, 3. Okay, and I can just write anything. I can add 4, 5, 6. Then I run this. I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As you can see, when we have this variable length arguments, it can take multiple arguments, and those arguments can change in the number of arguments, right? First we use three arguments, 1, 2, and 3. It executed perfectly. Then we use 3 more, total of 6, and even then it worked perfectly. So let's try to play around with it a little. Let's see what we can do. Okay, so let's see. Instead of maybe printing args, let's try to print type of args. Let's see if we can print type through the function. Okay, let's run this. Yep, as you can see, the type of this function is tuple. Why is it a tuple? As you already know, what's the syntax of a tuple? It's multiple elements separated by a comma inside round brackets, right? If it's inside round brackets, which is here in the case, right? A round bracket here, a round bracket here. That's why it's a tuple. And let's say, what if we wanted to enter it as a list? We know list is done using square brackets. So let's take a look. Let's see if it can happen using list or not. We will run this and see it still gives us a tuple. That's because what's happening here is the entire list is inside the round brackets, right? We do have list, we do have the list inside square brackets, but the entire list is one element inside of the tuple, which is inside the round bracket. That's why our output is still a tuple. Okay. So let's move ahead, which is multiple keyword arguments. All right. So you might be thinking like,
excuse me, sir.
Yes.
When we didn't, hello.
Yes.
Sir, when it is single tuple element, we use comma to type it as tuple, right? But we are not using any comma here, but the output is tuple.
You're right. So for that, what we're going to use it, instead of having multiple elements inside the list, let's just see what happens when we pass just one element. Okay, we run this. You can see the output is still a tuple, right? What's happening here is this star args. The star args is converting everything we enter into a tuple. This is how it is able to function. If we enter one argument, or if we enter two arguments, or if we enter 10 arguments, the variable argument function is only able to function because it is converting it into a tuple. Like, your question is very good. In fact, I really like that question, which is that why is it that this is just an integer, right? And if I enter a comma here, only then it will turn into a tuple. So what's happening here is, instead of entering the type of that variable here of the statement where we are calling the function, it's printing the type of the argument after its conversion, and it's converting because it has to, because it is a variable length argument. Okay, so now let's take a look. Okay, I don't know what the output will be here. I mean, I have no idea. I'm just going to test something out. I'm going to test a hypothesis. I'm going to write the data type of the first element, of the 0th element of the argument. Let's run this. Yep. Now as you see, we are getting list, right? Our tuple has only one element, right? And that one element is a list. That's why now we are getting the output as a list. Similarly, as I showed in the last example, if I just enter one number here, now I should get the output as an integer. And yep, I'm right. The output is an integer. Okay, got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right. So now we get variable length keyword arguments. Okay. So what in this function, in the variable length argument, what we're doing is we were just taking multiple arguments and then we were converting them into a tuple. But let's say, what if I don't want it to be a tuple? I do want to enter multiple arguments, but I still want all of the argument to maintain their individuality, right? When you make a tuple, all of the arguments just get entered into one big sequence. What if I don't want that to happen? I don't want it to go into a sequence. I just want them to stay to have an individual value. Let's say what I'm going to do is, instead of star args, I'm going to be using star kwargs, which is keyword arguments. So let me just declare another function, def var and the star kwargs. Okay, and inside this, let me just what shall we do with it? Let's just see the example. Let's see how they have done it. All right, so they have just printed everything. Okay, we will also start with that. We will just print kwargs. Okay, and now we can call the function.
You have to write double star.
All right, right. Thank you for that. Double star. Okay, your mic is cutting out. There are two people were speaking. Can you repeat yourself?
The same, sir. Nothing.
Okay, same thing. All right. So now we're going to be we will call the function var. Okay, and inside this we can enter anything we want. But let's scroll back a little. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see this statement. I'm going to be removing the comment. Okay, we have job is equal to developer and name is equal to Sid. Okay, in this statement, what we were doing, we were giving specific values to specific arguments, to specific name of these arguments, right? If my argument variable was job, then I was taking the name of that variable while giving it a value. Similarly, that's the same thing we are going to be using in kwargs. Okay, so I will just write, let's say, I'm going to write, let's say, paper is equal to white, right? The name, the color of most paper are white. And let's say, what else should I take? Let's just see the example. Okay, there are name, age, and job. Okay, that's a little boring. Let's say I will type laptop is equal to, let's say I will take Dell, because my laptop is of Dell. All right. So let me run this, and what happens is I get the output, and I get the output as a dictionary. Okay, so this is my key paper, and my value, which is white. Similarly, my second element, my second element's key is laptop, and its key is Dell. So this is like a dictionary. We have already studied this. It works in key values pair. There is a key, and then it has a value. And like if you want to enter a customized number of values, I think a dictionary is the perfect way of doing this. Like dictionary is the perfect way of interpreting an indefinite amount of key value pairs. Okay. Now, so if you have ever studied function in any other programming language, you must have noticed that it focuses a lot on the return statement, right? Like some programming languages have this condition that if you have a function, you have to have a return statement. Like without a return statement, you just cannot execute a return statement. You just cannot execute that function. I'm sorry. So that's what happens in a lot of them.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
I'm sorry, my internet was interrupted. This
What?
this ARGS, the argument. What is the difference between ARGS and ARGS?
There's wind again from your side, like before.
Excuse me,
Yes.
I should repeat myself.
Yeah, but there's a lot of wind flowing in your mic. Like you can just cover your mic using something, then the wind will
Or
stop.
you can put the question in the chat section. There's a lot of noise from your side.
Yes, you can. Yeah, but yeah, we were back on Google Meet from this week, so you can go use the chat section again. Okay, let me just take a look. Okay, I'm already here. All right. Okay, no messages yet. All right. So as I was saying, that in different programming languages, a function has to be paired up with the return statement. But what I think is that the concept of a function, it's already something complicated enough that you have to learn that alone. And then first you know how the function works, and then you step on to the concept of return statement. I think that's a better way of learning as compared to learning both function and return at the same time. Okay, like that's just my opinion. That's why we have set this flow of the class like this. So now we are going to study functions with return statements. If you're thinking that you didn't understand functions fully, then like if you're thinking that you didn't understand functions completely of how to do them, so you might not be able to understand what return is. Don't worry about it. It will take some time for you to understand function. Like I'm saying this over and over because it also took me a few attempts to understand functions and classes and all. And if I can speak for Parvez, even it took him some time to understand these concepts of object oriented. Like it does take repetitions over and over. That's why I'm also saying it over and over that don't worry about it in case you're not understanding it in your first attempt. If you're not able to understand it even in multiple attempts, then you can come back to us. We will be available on Discord, on WhatsApp, everywhere, and we will be happy to help you. Okay, so it's 12 now. Let's just take a quick 5-minute break and we will be back at 12:05. And we will start with the return statement and then we will do the lambda function also.
Siddharth, there was a question in the
Yep, sorry. So let me just, all right. So what's the difference between ARGS and KWARGS? Okay. So the basic function which I will say is is that ARGS, when you type multiple values in ARGS, they are converted into a tuple. And where you are entering multiple values in KWARGS, that's converted into a dictionary, right? So in your ARGS, you can enter, as I told you, I will just uncomment this all. Right. So here I can enter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can enter any number of values and this all will be converted into a tuple. Okay, so if you want to enter a series of numbers, right? If you want to enter a series or a sequence or a group or a set or a list, In that case, we can use ARGS. But if you want to enter different values and you want to use those values differently, right? Here we have a different value for paper and we have a different value for a laptop. And if you want those two values to stay independent, right? For example, here in the ARGS, this number 2 and this number 4, both have been put into the same tuple, right? Both have been put in the same sequence inside of the tuple. But here, the value paper and the value of the laptop both stay independent as if they are two different arguments. That's the main difference between those two.
Sir,
Yes.
please go back. I want to take a screenshot of what you are presenting right now.
All right.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, all right. So we shall start again, and we will start with the return statement, as I said. All right. Any questions up till now?
No, sir.
Yes. Yes. All right. Let me just comment out all of this. And now we will move on to the return statement. Let's go ahead with the PPT. Okay. So first, we will just start with the simplest example. Okay. We have def sum. We have already seen the sum example, a comma b. And what we're going to do is we are going to return a plus b. And now we're going to write sum. And then now we execute it. What will happen is, already I didn't enter the value. Let's just enter 1 comma 2. Right. So I didn't get any output here, right? The output here is blank. Why do you think that happened?
No print.
You're not printing.
Yep. Yep. So an output only comes if I am using a print statement. But there's no print statement here. There is just a return statement. So so let's understand first what a return statement is. Let's say I have a function and I want to execute that function, but I don't want the function to print anything. Right? Up till now, all of the examples that which we have done, we are using print statement so that we can see how that function is executing right there. Like right as the function execute, it prints out its execution, and we can see it right there, so we can understand how it functions. But what if we don't want to do that, right? What if I just want to make a function and the function calculates something, and then I want to use that output of that calculation for something else, right? I take a function, calculate something, I take the output, and then I use that output for a different function, and that function calculates something else, and so on and so forth, right? Maybe I want to use a string of 4 or 5 different functions. In that case, I will not be printing everything, right? I will only be printing one thing at the end of the functions. So in that case, what we do is we are going to be using the return statement. Return statement it's exactly as it sounds. If here we are calculating a plus b, as you can see, and the function is just going to return us the value of a and b. I have entered here 1 and 2. So this function is giving us, the function is calculating 1 plus 2, which is 3. And then the function is giving us the value of 3. And now it's up to us whatever we can do, whatever we want with the value of 3. So for that, what we are going to do is we first have to call the function inside a variable. I will just take the variable name x. X is equal to sum of 1 and 2, right? So what is the function returning us? It's returning us 1 plus 2, which is 3, and the 3 is getting stored in this variable called x. So what happens when I print x? I should get the output of 3. And as you can see, that's what happens. I get the output of 3. All right. So before we move on to recursion, let's go back and let's take a look at our document. Okay. So you can also return more than one. You can also return more than one value. Like you can have more than one values in just one return statement. Let's just take this same example. We have we are returning a plus b. Let's also return a minus b. Right. So now we will run this again, and as you can see, the output is 3, comma minus 1. 1 plus 2 is 3, and 1 minus 2 is negative 1. So let's just not do negative for now. Let's just take 5, comma 2, and when we run this, 5 plus 2 is 7, and 5 minus 2 is 3. Right, and let's check what the type of the return statement is. We will just type the type of x. It should be a tuple, and yep, it is a tuple. Okay, give me a second. All right, so here, so this is when you have multiple return statement. Okay, there are multiple values which get stored in one variable that gets stored in a tuple. That's how tuple works. I mean, that's how return statement and multiple outcomes work. All right. So let's see if I want to store it in a different value. Okay, I'm just experimenting here. Let's see what happens here. All right. So let me just explain what I've done here. All right. What I've done is I've taken two variables, x, comma, y. Okay. and I have two values in my return statement, which is a plus b and a minus b. And here I have two variables, x, comma, y. Okay. So let me just print both of them so you can also see which variable stands for which output. Okay. What's happening here is a plus b, which is the first output, that gets stored in the variable x, and a minus b, which is the second output, gets stored in the variable of y. Got it? We have two output values and we have two variables. That's why they both get mapped one-on-one on each other. And that is the output, which is why 5 plus 2, 7 is the value of x. When we are printing the x, we get 7. And when we are printing y, we get 3. And 3, if 5 minus 2 is 3. All right. So maybe you're thinking, what if I enter multiple variable, like more variables than I have output? If I write x, comma, y, comma, z, and I run this, as you can see, it's throwing me an error. It's telling me not enough values to unpack. It's telling me that the function doesn't have enough values to assign it to each variable, right? I have given three variables, but my function is only returning 2 values. So the third variable returns empty. So that's not good, right? That's an error. That's why you can either have one variable or you can have as many variables as there are outputs. All right. So this is how the multiple return types work. Okay. Any questions for this? No questions?
No, sir.
All right. Let's see if we have something else. Okay, so this is there is also this is extremely small concept called docstring. Docstring is the same as comment. Okay, so we have studied in the first class, if you remember. You can make a comment either using one hashtag, the hashtag symbol, or you can you do it using this. Right, we are on page number 5 in that document. If anybody is using that, so we have 3 quotation marks first and 3 quotation marks after that. And inside of the quotation mark, whatever you enter, it does get interpreted as a comment. So this is the same thing. We have a function, and inside the function we have a comment, and that comment explains what the function is doing. That is called docstring. The only benefit of this is this function, as you can see, print the name of the function dot underscore underscore doc underscore underscore. What this is going to do is this will just print the comment which you have written inside of that function. Like a very simple concept. I don't think I need to code this to show you. This example is at the level of the first class which we did. All right, like you guys already can handle it if you just read it once. All right, and then there's composition. All right, let's take a look at what composition is. So that is, composition just means that there are several functions which you can execute without coding them. Okay. So in this example, what we're doing is let's say we are doing math.sign function, right? We are executing math.sign function without programming what math.sign function actually is. And this is because of the first statement, right? You see the statement here, import math. So when you write this statement, import math, what's happening is there is a file. There is a file that is already in your system. Like remember when you were downloading Python from python.org, when you click on download, there wasn't just one file which got downloaded. There were multiple files which got downloaded. And one of those files was math.py. If you look for it, you should be able to find it, math.py. And inside of that file, there are already many functions. Many functions which are already programmed for you to use. So what's happening here is when you import math, when you import math, what's happening is that file, that math.py file, all the functions of that file are becoming accessible from the file you're working on now. All right. So that's what's happening when you import math. All the functions of the maths file are accessible to you now by just using the import statement. That's why you can use the math.sign statement and you can find the sign value of anything, of any degree. There is also sine value, cos value, tan value, like there are all of the 6 trigonometric functions. And since it's mathematical, it doesn't just end with trigonometry. There's all kinds of functions you can do with math. Like if you go and look at the documentation for the maths file, you will be mind blown looking at just how vast the library is. Okay, and these functions are very simple. I don't think I need to code this out to you. Okay, now we get to nested functions. All right, I will program this and show you. This is the same as everything nested which we have done up to this point. All right, we have done nested loops, we have done nested if statement, we have done nested list, nested sets, and this is the same. Nested functions are the exact same as those. Okay, they just mean a function inside of another function. Okay, so let's program this. We have def outer, which means stands for the outer function, and def inner is the inner function, but you don't need to name it at that. Okay, you can name the outer function as inner and you can name the inner function as outer. It doesn't matter at all. Like doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Okay, now we're going to print this. I will just write def outer. I'm just going to use the same example as this file. I will just write, let's say, a comma b. Here I will write def inner, like the inner function, and here I will write c comma d. C comma d. All right, colon, and here I will write what I want to execute here, which will be, let's say I want to return c plus d. Okay, and you can see this is the same as the summation, right? Okay, I'm going to mute myself for a minute. Okay, just a second. All right. So as we've already seen the sum function, right? The sum, and inside of the sum function, there are two values, and then we are adding those two values. It's the same thing which is happening here, right? We are returning c plus d. There are two values, c and d. We're adding them, and then we're returning them. We have already seen this. But the only difference is that we are doing this inside a nested function. So let's take a look what else we have. Where is the document? Here. Yeah, I'm sorry guys, I think I caught a cold. Okay, I'm sneezing a lot today. So, okay, so we are returning c plus d. So this return statement is the value of this, right? Okay, so this return statement, c plus d, is the return statement of this inner function. But we are not going to be calling the inner function, right? We are going to be calling the outer function. So, which means that we also need to have a return value for the outer function. Now, let's take a look at what it is in the example, which is, let's just write it. Okay. So the return value of the outer function is return inner of a comma b. Right? Is it a comma b? Yep. What's happening here is we have an outer function which has two values a and b, and inside of that we have an inner function. That doesn't mean that the inner function gets executed automatically. If we have to call the outer function, that means we also have to call the inner function. So the return type of the outer function is this, which is inner A and B, which means that the return statement of the first function is calling the second function, okay? And this, we are calling the inner function A and B, and that is returning us C and D, all right? So this is the line where we are calling the inner function, and that's returning us C and D, which means the value of this line, the value which I've selected, the value of this is C plus D, right? Which means we are indirectly, this is just an overly glorified way of writing a function for summing two values. Okay, and then we are just going to call the outer function. Okay, I'm just going to call, let's say, result is equal to outer, and just 4,5. Okay, and let's print this. Okay, we didn't print result. All right, print result. Okay, we have the output as 9. So I will just quickly go over this once again. We are first here, we are calling the outer function, which is 4,5. Okay, that way Python goes and looks for the outer function, which is this. All right, outer A comma B. This outer function, this function which is outer, that calls the inner function. Okay, we are calling this here, that calls the inner function, and then the inner function returns the value of C plus D, and that return value goes into the place where we have called the inner function, and there we also have a return statement, and that's why we get the value as 9. Okay, so assigning functions to variables, we have already been doing, like result is equal to calling a function. This is what we have already been doing for the last 15 minutes. We don't need to go over this, but you have this document, you can take a look. Like this is just this is the same concept, but just the execution inside of the function is getting a little tricky. So you can just practice this on your own. Okay, so a function executes at runtime, which means that the memory allocated to a function happens only when you call it. All right, like if you have 10 numerical variables inside a function, and those 10 variables, let's say each of them is of a size of 4 bytes, that means 10 variables store the memory of 40 bytes. And let's say you're calling that function on line number 20, then those 40 bytes will be allocated only when you reach that line, when you reach the line of 20, not before that. So yeah, that's what means that it executes at runtime. Okay. Now we come to recursion. Recursion is a huge topic, right? The concept of recursion is very small, but the implementation of recursion is absolutely massive. Okay, so you first just so now we're only going to be limiting ourselves to the concept of recursion. We will see what implementation is, because if you want to step into what recursion can actually do, for that there are many algorithmic questions and competitive coding questions. From there you will get a good idea of how great the implementation of recursion can be if coded properly. But for now we are just going to stick to the concept and not to the full extent of the implementation. All right, so first let's try to understand what recursion is. A recursion is a function that's calling itself. Okay, now let me comment this out, and let me just show you a bad example. Okay, like this is an incorrect example, but just for the sake, okay, I have my def func, which stands for function. Okay, and inside the function I'm going to be calling function again. Okay, this is a recursion. This is a recursion function. Okay, I have my function, and inside the function I'm calling the function itself. But this doesn't make sense, right? Like this is the basic syntax of recursion, but this doesn't make sense, right? There's no execution, there's no print statement, there's no exit value, there's no arguments, like there's nothing here. So what are we even going to do with this? So now we will take a look at how we can make a good recursive function. Okay, so for example, let's just the countdown function I think is very simple. So let's just take this, def countdown, we have a function, and the function is taking a value number. Okay, we will take this as a user input. All right, and we have the number, and let's say we have the number and we want to count down to the value of 0. Okay, like when it comes to 0, it will stop. So what we're going to do is, first you're going to be writing a print statement, which is if num is equal to 0, then what will happen is we'll just print stop. Okay. Else, okay, I think it does have the else statement. Okay. Else what will happen is it's just going to print the number. Then it is going to write countdown num minus 1. Okay. This is our syntax. Now let's try to understand what's happening here. Okay. We have a function. Okay. Pay attention closely now. This is important. Like if you get this, yeah, it will help you a lot. We have this function countdown. All right. And inside that we have this argument of a number. If that number is 0, what will happen? We are just going to print stop. If that number is not 0, then what we are going to do is we are printing that number. Okay. If that number is, let's say the number is 5, then we are going to be printing 5. And if the number is 0, we are going to be printing stop. But what's happening here is if the number is 5, in that case, we are going to call this function again on itself using the number num minus 1, right? The value of num is 5. That means inside that function, we are executing this entire function. We are executing this entire function again, but the change is that we are using the value num minus 1, which means that 5 will go to 4. What's happening here now? Let's take a look. 5 minus 1 is 4, and this entire function will repeat itself again, but using the value of 4. So is 4 is equal to 0? No, it's not, which means stop will not get printed. What will get printed is the num, and the number is 4, so I will get 4 as the output, and then it will call its function on top of itself again, but this time it will decrease 1 again. It will be num minus 1, which is 3. Okay. So, and then it will get executed over for 3, and then it will get again executed for 2, and then it will get executed again for 1. And then when the value is 1, it will print num. It will print num, and the value of num is 1. And then it will again, execute this function countdown for num minus 1, which is equal to 1 minus 1. And 1 minus 1 is 0, right? And which means that we have satisfied our exit condition. And when we satisfy our exit condition, our recursion stops, right? So this is more of a conceptual understanding than a programming understanding, right? You have a concept of recursion, a program which calls itself until it meets a value at which it can exit the recursion, right? If you wrote a program which recursively calls itself forever and ever, like that program just doesn't make sense, right? It will just keep on executing forever. Like, why would you even want to write such a thing? That's why you always need to have an exit value, and the exit value in this case is 0, right? My number 0. And how do I know that my exit value will be met at one point or another? I know that because I'm using minus 1. If I have entered a positive number and I'm just decreasing 1 at a time, like if I've entered a positive, let's say even if I've entered 2000, and if I keep decreasing the value of 2000 by 1 in each recursive step, in that case, what will happen is that I will end up with 0 at one time or another. Okay. So what we're going to be using, let's just take the x is equal to input, enter a number, and then we're going to be, let's say, we're going to call the function countdown of x. Okay. Now we will print this. We enter a number. I will just enter 5 as I took the example. Okay, I made a mistake. Right, integer of 1. Right. Okay, so let me run this again. Enter a number 5. As you can see, what's the output here? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop. Okay. Did everyone get the structure of the recursive function? This is really important. I want you all to understand this. Anybody who didn't understand it, ask me right now.
Yes, sir. Please explain again.
Okay, all right. They're good for asking. I will go over this once again. I have this countdown of num, right? And the value of num is, right? The value of num is equal to the value of x, and x is 5, right? I've entered the value of 5. What's happening here is I'm executing the function of countdown using the value of 5. Is 5 equal to 0? Tell me if 5 is not equal to 0, right? Which means this if statement will not get executed, which means this else statement will get executed. Since 5 is not so, what we're going to be doing is, since 5 is not 0, first thing what we will do is we are going to be printing 5. And the second thing what we are going to do is we are just going to call this function again, but we are changing the value from 5 to 4, right? We are calling this function from num minus 1. Num is equal to 5, which means num minus 1 is equal to 4. That means we are going to be calling this function again with the value of 4, right? Which means 4 will add this, and then in the second recursion step, we are going to be printing num, and this time the value of num is 4, right? When we are when we are executing this statement, countdown num minus 1, which means that this num minus 1 is equal to num, right? We have often we have seen this statement, right? I'm just writing the statement to show you. Num is equal to num minus 1. You've seen this statement over and over already. Like we have seen this in loops. You've seen this in condition statements. You've already seen this kind of statement. All right. So this is what's happening here. When you are executing for num minus 1, when you are calling the function for num minus 1, the value of num minus 1 gets passed as the value of num in the second recursive step. Okay, you can mute yourself for now. Okay, Sudhanshu, please mute yourself.
Sudhanshu, please
So I have
mute
to go back
yourself.
to the screen. So I have to go back to the screen.
Yes, what's your question? Yes, you were saying something, Ernest?
See the codes. I wanted to see the code. So what is countdown number -1? Meaning you have to. Is it
This one, right?
Is it reverse order?
So you're asking what this function actually does.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So take a look what's happening here. What's happening in sentence number 57. We are calling the function of countdown, right? We are calling using this statement. We are calling this function. Similarly, using this statement, we're also calling this function. Like the function is calling itself again. Okay, that's what's happening here. But we are calling that function but we are decreasing the value of its argument. Here we are calling the function using the value of x, and the value of x turns into the value of num. And when we are calling it with the value of num minus 1, that means the num minus 1 turns into num. So when we are we call the function using 5, that 5, okay, so first we print 5, and then we call that function again using the value of 4, which means we are going to be printing 4. Then we call it again using the value of 3, which means we will print 3, and then it will call itself again for value of 2, it will print 2, then it will call itself for value of 1, and then it will print 1. And then it will call itself for the value of 0. And when it calls itself for the value of 0, instead of printing 0, it will going to print stop. Why? Because the value of num has now changed into 0. So this is when we meet our exit statement. All right. So this is, I think, I hope everybody understood it. In case you didn't, you can contact me later because I think our time is going to be over shortly. I still have Lambda function to cover, and I will go over it very quickly. All right. So we have done let's scoping. Scoping we will do in so in next class we are going to be using doing exception handling, and I think scoping is a more appropriate topic for exception handling. That we will do tomorrow. And today we are going to be using lambda function. Okay. So what lambda function is that, let's say you are writing a function which is very small, right? The function is just one class. Like the function just has one statement or maybe two statements. Like it's a very small function. In that case, what you don't need to do is like you don't need to like declare the function and then make it have a return value. Like that can take multiple lines. That can take multiple lines of code, and that makes the code like a little more inefficient as compared to using lambda function. The lambda function, okay, so understand this, that lambda function is a way of making small function into even smaller functions. It just helps improve the efficiency of writing the code. So let's take a look what's happening here. Okay, we have a statement x is equal to lambda, which is a colon a plus 10. Okay. And do we have an equivalent function here? No, we don't. All right.
Siddharth,
Yes.
I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but someone has said, can you please repeat the function inside function once? It's Omkar. So if you can
All
please, repeat that thing, that will be really good.
All right. So this recursive thing, I think. See, the thing is, I have already said it. I'm happy to solve your doubt, but I think most of the students have already got it. So repeating it for the third time, it won't be good for them. So what you do this today at 6 p.m. Parvez and I will be in the Discord channel. Join us there, and I will, if you want, I will explain to you 5 times until you get it.
Okay.
But for now, we are just giving you for this.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
I've shared a visual representation of recursion YouTube link, a video of YouTube from YouTube. Just check it out. If there is still an issue, we can sort it out after the class.
It's not about recursion. It's about the function inside the function.
That's what recursion is.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Function calling itself. That's it. But if you have an error, you can join at 6 to that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
6:30.
Yeah, you can join at 6 at Discord. We'll definitely resolve that.
Yeah.
Right. So here we are using a lambda function. Okay. So what's happening here is x is equal to, like, this is the same as this statement, right? X is equal to not this statement. Like, remember when we were calling statements using variables, right? Let's say we were doing countdown x in the previous statement, right? What if I write something like x is equal to not here? What would happen like if I write x is equal to countdown x, and then I can just print x? Like the output will be same, but this is what's happening in the lambda function. I have a variable, and inside that variable I am storing lambda, and here I have the arguments of my function. All right, my arguments of the function are a. So I have this colon here, and you might be thinking, whenever we use colon, we complement it with an indentation, right? We have a colon, and then we go to the next line, and then the next line we have 4 spaces, we have an indentation, and then we write the rest of the code, right? But this is not what happens in lambda function. Okay, so let me just open the resource so I can explain to you a little more accurately. All right. Yep, I think there's a better. Yep, here I have a better example, which is like it's comparing a lambda function using to a normal function. Okay, so let me start over. Okay, I have def double. Okay, let's say I have a function which is called double, and brackets, inside bracket I will just enter a number x, and whatever it's returning x multiplied by 2. Okay, and let me just call that function. I'm just calling that function y is equal to let's say a double of 5, and I'm going to print y. But this is a very simple function, right? I will execute it. I am getting the output of 10. And what's happening here is I'm using the function double. My value is 5, which is 5 gets multiplied by 2, and then I'm printing y, which is 5 into 2, 10. That's what I'm printing. Okay, this is my function. Now this is a very small function, right? It just says one line of code. What if I want to execute this using a lambda function? Now let's take a look. I think this is a better way of doing this. So I will just write the name of the function again. I will just write double is equal to, and what I will write is lambda, and and then I will write an argument. My argument is x, right? And x colon, and after the colon, you can write whatever is your return value, right? Colon and x multiplied by 2. Okay, and let's see how we execute it. We are going to be using, we're going to do print double of, let's say we are just for now we will take 6. Right? Okay, and let me just comment all of this out. I will run this. As you can see, the output is 12. Now for you to understand how lambda function works, you have to understand, I will just undo this. Okay, you have to understand how the lambda function equates with a normal function. Okay, here I have double, which is the variable, and here I have the double, which is the name of the function. Okay, when you're using the lambda function, the thing which comes before the equal to sign is the name of a function. Okay, then we're using lambda, which is the keyword for making a lambda function. Then we have x. Okay, what is x? X is an argument, and then we have a colon, and then after the colon, okay, this x multiplied by 2, the calculation which comes after the colon, that is a return value, right? We are returning x multiplied by 2 here, and here also we are returning x multiplied by 2. Okay, try to find the connections between a normal function and a lambda function, right? This is the name of the variable, this is the name of the argument of the variable, and this is the return. This is what we are returning, and then we just print double of 6, which is double x is x. The return type is x into 2, and 6 into 2 is 12, and that's what we get here, right? We get x into 2, 12, and that is our output. Okay, and these are all the other functions which you can do inside of the lambda function. You guys already know how to do if else. You guys already know how to use if else in like the conditional statement normally in Python. Okay, we don't have any questions for you for today, but we will have practice questions for you for tomorrow. So I'm going to leave this for you. Okay, you have the slides, you have the code, and you also have the output. So this won't be a problem. I don't think it should be. So what's happening here is, what if you have inside the function you have two different types of return statement based on some conditions, right? If condition X is true, then you have a different return statement. If condition Y is true, then you have a different return statement. That can also be expressed in a lambda function. All right. And similarly, you can even add an entire list in lambda function. Like Python is very efficient in the way it's working. You have the code in the presentation. You have the output in the presentation. Just take a look at it. You will be able to understand, and just write it out at once, and you will be good in it. Okay, so I think for today we have covered everything. We did skip some small topics like these two things, if else and list comprehension. That's because I want you to do it. Like I can explain it right now, but it's better if you do it, right? Because I want you see if like I've already explained lambda function. If after the class you go and you write lambda, you practice the same syntax, the same program for lambda function which I have written, then you won't be learning as much as you would be if you go further than what I have been teaching you, right? That's why I'm leaving these two topics for you, like the last 2 slides of today's presentation. I want you all to do this. I'm not explaining this, but it's easy. You will be able to do it. And again, we will be available at 6 p.m. today. You can ask any doubts if you want. All right, so that's it for today's class. Thank you, everybody. You all asked really good questions today, and thank you for staying for the entire 2 hours. All right, I will stop presenting.
I really want to have a talk with every one of you. Siddharth, are you done?
Yep, I'm done. The stage is yours.
Yeah. So, wait a minute, just.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, how are you all?
Well, fine.
That's amazing. So enjoying the classes, P2P classes.
Yeah.
Yes, we
Yes,
are.
sir.
Absolutely, bhai, absolutely.
That's really amazing to seeing you people, seeing like 70 people joining in for P2P classes. Really, it's a really good thing. And I do join the Discord voice rooms also, because there are a lot of things which you can ask there, and you can ask here, but there like we have less number of hours here, so that is the advantage we can take of Discord. You can join Discord and just ask anything outright. You have a lot of questions in your mind, a lot of things like students text me and ask like how the classes will be shuffled after second year, the number of hours that we have to put in. So you can ask all those things there, right? So we have made those voice channels, and probably I'll be launching two more voice channels today for two more clubs. And we already have one for GitHub, so you can join there and like ask anything. Just get a time from your Pravesh, at 6 we are doing that.
Yep, from 6 to 6:30.
Okay, from 6 to 6:30, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll try to be there today, and I hope I can get there. I don't get any tasks at that time. So yes, I really want to say that join those sessions. The most important thing is have interaction with your seniors, right? Because that's when they can guide you the best. Text them, join these rooms, because I really want to have. Uh, I This idea of Discord came to me last year. I made this whole Discord thing last year, and the idea of making this Discord was to just get everything under one roof, so we can interact, we can send text messages, we can make announcements, and just get whole CSE department students under one roof, right? So utilize it, guys. And journal chat के सिवा भी channel होते हैं, so just text there also. Have your doubts, clear them, ask your seniors, right? And yes, just utilize the thing you are given. So anything else you want to say, or have any doubt, you want to say anything, any suggestion, right? So are you guys filling that suggestion or feedback form regularly?
Yes, Bayan.
Yeah.
Yes.
So fill that feedback form regularly, right? Because after every class, do you like circulate that feedback form?
Yep, after every class.
Yeah, it just popped up right in front of me. So yes, you can fill that, and do fill that, because that I say it repeatedly n number of times, that's when I can see what I have to improve, what we have to improve. Pravesh and Siddharth are doing amazing work. They are putting so much of hard work. I'm really proud of them, and doing some good tasks for Technical Society. Being the president of Technical Society, I'm really proud of both of these members and president of GitHub Club. So yes, utilize things. I really want to see you all at 6 p.m. We can have formal, informal talks, definitely. And anything you want to ask apart from studies or anything, I'll be there to share my experiences, listen to your problems and suggestions, right? So can I get hands, like how many people will join there? Raise hands. Okay, great. Okay, that is great. Even if like 5-10 people join, that will be really great. So we'll have a really good session there. So yeah, thank you guys, and best of luck. And I'll again say, if you have any problem, do approach me. I'm really approachable. I do reply to text, and some of you might have already texted me, so they know that I do reply to text a lot, not immediately, but yes, I do reply to text the same day. So yes, if you have any problem, just come to me. That's it. That's I want to say. That's I always say, actually. Yes, thank you so much. And